Ready, set, hut, hut.
As the hills of West Virginia resound with the sounds of Golden Blue football.
Almost heaven, West Virginia.
Now let's bring on the Mountaineers. Goes around about the 50 to 10 to 5. A touchdown, West Virginia. He did it.
He did it. Patrick White. Touchdown, Tavon Austin.
But Don Nehlen's Mountaineers enjoy walking in where angels fear to tread.
I think you think that these guys are going to fall over dead for you. Well, I got news for you. They're going to punch you right in the mouth. It's Mountaineer pride!
Nothing cheap, nothing dirty, but West Virginia football. West Virginia football.
We've no doubt tonight they shouldn't have played the old Golden Blue. Not this night!
They've done it. They've done it. A perfect season. And the Mountaineers, for the first time in history, undefeated and untied.
Don Nehlen and his Mountaineers, for the second time, have finished a regular season with an unblemished mark.
Ain't no stopping the Golden Blue.
It is a great night to be a Mountaineer wherever you may be.
What's going on, Mountaineer Nation? Welcome back into the Country Roads webcast. We're providing you West Virginia sports content from Mountaineer fans for Mountaineer fans. Here today for our WVU spring game recap show here for our live stream on April 18th. Just walked back into the door, getting back from Morgantown probably 10, 15 minutes ago. You know, I debated on doing a live stream on the way home, but I said, I'll be home early enough. May as well just do one here where we got better, video and audio quality than trying to do it from my phone on the drive home from Morgantown. So back at the house, plenty of takeaways here. I'll get into some of my initial overall thoughts, and then I took notes throughout the game to kind of give you guys a recap of a lot of things that went down. We've got a couple of clips to go with some of the notes as well, as I've seen WVU football share those on social media. So when I get to those plays, I'll share the clips of those as well. But just want to give you guys kind of a recap of what I saw and my takeaways. So that's what's on the docket for this one. And if you guys got any questions about anything, my opinions on anything I saw today, be sure to drop those in the chat as well. I'll answer some of your all's questions about the game and such towards the end of the show also. So that's what's on the docket for this one. Appreciate you guys tuning in, whether you're watching live or on a playback. Be sure to hit the thumbs up button while you're in here to help out with the algorithm. That way this can find other Mountaineer football fans like you and me. And be sure you're subscribed to the channel. That way you can get notified when we go live, as we do multiple times per week here on the Country Roads webcast. Plus you'll get our daily pre-recorded videos where we talk about all WVU sports into your feed as well. And shout out to the baseball team for getting a win today. I did happen to see that before I hopped on here, so I wanted to shout that out. So let's lead off. I'll just kind of give some initial thoughts here before I get into my notes. Really good, turnout. I think there was a pretty good turnout there at the game. Great weather, for the whole game portion, like we said, and we expected they were playing on just the one side of the field because the concert was set up on the other side of the stage for the concert. So, drive started at the 40. So, 60 yards was about the most you could go on any given drive. And West Virginia did hit a 60-yard play. We'll talk about that. But I did put out on social media, I think that one of my main takeaways was the offense looks to be ahead of the defense at this time. And of course, that's always subject to change, and it's also kind of always hard to judge, right? Your offense is making plays. Is it because they're going to be really good? Is it because your defense is struggling? But then when I listened to the post-game press conferences on my ride home and heard Zach Alley say they only called about 5 plays on defense and were super vanilla, that's another reason I think that could have been the case, that the offense looked a little bit ahead of the defense. Not to say the defense didn't make some plays as well. They did, and we'll hit on those when I get into my notes. But definitely liked a lot of what I saw from the offense. Not to say I didn't like some things from the defense, but I think it's just kind of night and day from where we left off last season to where we are heading into this season early on with how the offense is performing already, especially up front. The offensive line, very physical. They look bigger. They were getting pushed. They were opening holes in the run games. You were getting, big runs from, multiple different people on the roster. And, that doesn't happen without good offensive line play. So I think that's certainly a plus. I think the Rick Trickett addition is paying dividends already for WVU. I love all the activities around the game. I think calling it a spring festival was fitting because it had that, spring party-like atmosphere to it with everything they had going on with the gear sale, with, the free shirts, which I did. You may see me posted on social media. I got me one of those Earn Success free t-shirts there. And of course, getting the concert after the game and all of that as well. Definitely was a really fun time for sure. I think offensively, some of the young quarterbacks really impressed me. I think we got some guys that can really run. I mean, I knew as much with Hollywood Johnson and then, Jaron Hughley. We've kind of heard some talk about it, seen, some clips a little bit, but seeing it live and in person, he really does have some wheels there. I think we didn't see a ton from some of the starters on offense. I think they rested those guys a good bit with Cam Cook. I think played one series. Scotty Fox, I think played one, maybe two. I believe it was only one series that I saw Scotty in, but he did throw a touchdown pass and looked in to be in control of the offense and efficient in his time in the game. And then Mike Hawkins as well. I think it's still going to be a battle that continues. It was too small of a sample size to probably judge one way or the other, but I did think that Scotty looked a little bit more efficient than Mike Hawkins did. But that's also probably to be expected when you got Scotty, who's in his second year in this offense, versus Mike Hawkins, who's still kind of getting his feet wet with it. A lot of that can change throughout summer and into fall camp, and we'll see how that goes. Max Brown made some plays, but like I said, the young quarterbacks really impressed me, Jaron Hughley and John Johnson. We got a good stable of running backs, I think. We only saw Cam Cook the one series. They kind of rested him, which we pretty much more or less expected. You don't want to risk getting him injured, but you did get to see some Amari Latimer, some Martavis Boswell, some Chris Talley. You even saw the new running back Darius Morant, Andre Devine get some carries. The receivers made some plays. You had a big play for Keon Hutchins, who showed off his wheels to burn somebody deep. You had John Nider making some tough catches. Teron Francis had a good catch and run at one point. DJ Epps had a nice touchdown we'll talk about momentarily. So I think a lot of the receivers made plays. Now, Prince Strawn, we didn't really get to see him make too many plays. Matter of fact, he kind of injured his shoulder fighting for a deep ball early in the scrimmage, and they kind of held him out after that. Rich Rod did mention he don't think that'll be a long-term deal, but that's really the only injury that I saw that kind of came out of this game was the Prince Strawn injury, but seems like he'll be okay and be good to move forward. Defensively, some of the defensive backs made some plays. We had some good pass breakups. Damon Allen with one. They did have a strip six at one point. Just so some of my initial thoughts here, and then I want to get into my notes. We'll get a little bit more specific, but special teams wise, I think the Western Kentucky transfer, Jack Cassidy, he kind of booms that thing. You can hear it come off his foot really nicely. I think he's got a great chance to be the place kicker. We'll see if he handles kickoffs as well, but definitely looked good, kicking some field goals. So with that, I'll dive into some of my notes here. Like I said, if you guys got any questions about anything that I saw or anything you wanted to know about further, just drop them in the chat there. I'll get some of your all's comments here after I run through my notes a bit, but I wanted to get some of my initial thoughts there out of the way. And shout out to Trey Edwards as well, who was able to meet at the game. We just sit there and took it in together. That was pretty cool. Don't know if you're on here or not, Trey, but if you are, that was cool, man. Nice to meet you in person. And I saw Silas again. Met Silas before, but got to see him at the game as well, which was pretty cool. So let's get into some of my notes really quickly. Obviously, to start off the spring game, you always get your Iron Mountaineer Awards. You get your Tommy Nikolic Award to the top walk-on, which this year the Tommy Nikolic Award went to Cyrus Straw, the transfer from where did he transfer from? I done lost it. But Parkersburg native, for sure, for Cyrus Straw. This is his second year with the program. Youngstown State, I believe, is where he transferred in from. Slipped my mind for a second there. On the Iron Mountaineer Awards, you had Nick Cray, Ryan Ward, and Jameer Latimer named the Iron Mountaineers, who worked really hard there in the weight room. And then to start things off, they began it with the field goal competition, which Jack Cassidy, as I mentioned, hit the longest field goal with a 50-plus yarder to begin the kind of festivities there. And then the scrimmaging began with the gold team, which was in white, against the blue team. Sometimes they were saying white team. In my notes, I've got them as the gold team because, it's always been titled the gold-blue scrimmage, gold-blue spring game, gold-blue spring festival. So that's what you'll hear me talk here is either gold team or blue team. So let's start it off here where Scotty Fox had a 16-yard scramble on the first play of the game, which was good to see, especially him being able to get loose when both he and Michael Hawkins were wearing the black jersey, so if they get touched, they're down. So he was able to get 16 yards without being touched. A nice scramble there. Nice to see Scotty get out of the pocket, show off some of his running game, as we know he can throw it well there for the blue team. And then I also found it interesting, the first center that we saw there, the center for the blue team, was Cam Griffin, the Jack State transfer. I wasn't really expecting him to play center, but seems like that's definitely going to be a possibility. He was the first one up snapping for the blue team. Then we had DJ Epps scored the first touchdown of the day on that pass from Scotty Fox, and that would be Scotty's final series. But like I said, he seemed in command of the offense, started off with a good scramble, and then bookended it with the touchdown pass to DJ Epps, who caught the ball and then made some nice plays, made some people miss with some shiftiness to get into the end zone, which I think we have a clip of that play here that WVU Football shared on social media. So let me show that one. This was the first touchdown of the spring game. See some of the shiftiness there from DJ Epps. That's what I like. See it one more time. Just a nice easy throw for Scotty, and then DJ Epps makes people miss and goes and scores. And that's not the first time we've seen that. In the clips they put out throughout the spring, we saw DJ Epps do something similar earlier this spring when they were putting out clips. So I think he's going to be a threat to make some people miss once he gets the ball in his hands. He was also, probably going to serve as one of your return men. They weren't doing any live, punt situations, but they did punt a couple of times. And when they did, he was the returner for the blue team. The punt returner back for the gold team was Armani Weaver. So I think we're going to get a heavy dose of DJ Epps this season, whether it's at receiver or return man. And you can see why he is a good return man with his ability to make people miss, as you saw there on the first touchdown in the spring game. So gold team then gets onto the field. Michael Hawkins, quarterback in them. He hit Ryan Ward for a first down on his first play. So he started it off nicely there with a completion to the tight end to move the sticks. And snapping for the gold team, mentioned Cameron Griffin was the center for the blue team. For the gold team, you had Wes King, the Wyoming transfer. Yet again, somebody that I probably wasn't expecting to play center when we initially got him, but sounds like that's been the case throughout the spring. He and Cam Griffin were the first two centers up for their two respective squads. You also did have Landon Livingston snapping at one point, and then Trevor Bigelow, another offensive lineman, was snapping. So looks like those are maybe the four guys that are working at center for West Virginia right now that got into the game there that I was able to note here in my notes. So after that possession, blue team got the ball back, and one of the first nice plays for the defense that I had noted here was Isaiah Patterson really coming screaming in and forcing a TFL on a toss play. Blue team was trying to, get a toss play going to the outside. I believe it was to Andre Devine. And not only did he set the edge enough to stop the toss play, he got it was like a 5+ yard TFL. He really came screaming in there from his linebacker spot. I think Isaiah Patterson's got some good speed and some good potential there at the linebacker position. Then we had Max Brown with nearly a 20-yard run on his first play in the game, and I think he showed some good things with his legs in this one. I think you can definitely tell he's made some improvements, much like Rich Rod has mentioned throughout the spring. I think Max Brown showed that a little bit. 20-yard run just about on his first play in the game that ended with him lowering his shoulder and leveling a defender as well to close off the run, to cap that run, that 20-yard run. So I was like, okay, all right, Max. His first play in, you see something like that. And then I talked about the defense having some good PBUs. I think the corner that maybe had the best PBU of the day came with Damon Allen, number 4 out there, one of the junior college transfers for West Virginia. He made a really nice PBU to break up a third down pass play. So, in kind of a clutch scenario there, makes a great pass breakup to end a drive. And then we get what was probably the highlight of the day just because it was the longest play of the day. I think there's a couple of candidates here, but this one to me was probably my favorite play of the day, and that was Jyron Hughley. Like I talked about, throughout spring, we've heard it mentioned that he's fast, he can really run. We've, seen some clips come out of practice talking about that. Now got to see it from my own eyes as he broke a 60-yard touchdown run on his first snap. His first snap in there for the gold team. He absolutely showed off those wheels and took it to the house, which I believe we have a clip of that as well here from the WVU Football social media page. Let's share that one.
Jyron Hughes with a 60-yard touchdown.
I'm going to play that through one more time because just watch the separation he gets once he hits the sideline. There's no defenders in the frame by the time he gets to the end zone. He's got some wheels there at the quarterback position. So pretty impressive there from Jaron Hughley. Like I said, both he and Hollywood Johnson, the two true freshmen, both showed some things with their legs today. I think that they do have a little bit of improvement to make in the passing game side of things, and Rich Rod mentioned that a little bit in his post-game press conference as well, that sometimes when you're young, you know kind of where you're supposed to go with the ball, but then you're still thinking about it too much and you're kind of aiming the ball versus just getting it out there and putting it in play. And I think you saw that a couple of times. I think there was a play where Hughley had, I want to say it was Chris Talley wide open, and if he puts the throw on him, it's a big gain, if not a touchdown pass for him, and just kind of threw it behind him a little bit there. So I think he'll come along in the passing game, but man, he has a lot of potential for the future with the way he can run the football, and we know a running quarterback can do some damage in a Rich Rod offense for sure. I mentioned DJ Epps and Armani Weaver being the two guys that were back catching punts for the two teams there. John Johnson coming into the game, Hollywood Johnson, the true freshman recruit from Louisiana, had a 15-yard run on his first play in for the blue team, and then breaks some tackles and runs for 15 to 20 more a couple of plays after that. So, in a span of about 3 or 4 plays, John Johnson was up over 30, 40 rushing yards in this game. So I think he showed some capabilities with his legs, which I was kind of more expecting that from him. You guys probably heard me throughout the offseason saying that I really like his speed and I love his story, being a guy that most people wanted to play defensive back. And West Virginia says, hey, we'll give you a shot at quarterback, which sounds familiar if you know your history with West Virginia, especially in Rich Rod's offense. But he definitely still has that speed. But I think Jaron Hughley's right there. Those two both can really run, man. They can really run the football. He would cap that drive by throwing a touchdown pass to true freshman tight end Sam Hamilton. That nice little, dump pass that West Virginia does, where it's kind of an extension of the triple option. You got the handoff, the ability to hand off to the running back. Quarterback can keep it and roll out, and the tight end just kind of rolling in front of him there for the nice little dump into the flat. Able to hit Sam Hamilton on that, who got into the end zone to finish out the drive for the blue team on that one. So it was a successful first drive there for John Johnson in there as well as a true freshman, which we got a lot of looks at these younger guys today in the spring game. I think that they kind of know what they have with some of the upperclassmen, and they gave them, just minimal series and really played some of the new guys a good bit here, and we got to get a look at those guys. Mentioned a couple pass breakups. Another really good one came for the gold team with Jacob Bradford breaking up a pass, had a nice PBU. The LSU safety transfer, who, is in that category of guys that we've talked about here that were really high recruits that now West Virginia's got in from the transfer portal as redshirt freshmen, so potentially have 4 years of eligibility remaining. Guys like Heem, guys like Teron Francis, guys like Toby Houstrup, all three of those guys were really high-ranking recruits, and Jacob Bradford had a really nice PBU where he kind of came in, timed it perfectly, broke on the ball just like you want your defensive back to do, and nearly intercepted it, but ended up with a nice pass breakup on the play. I mentioned Landon Livingston and Trevor Bigelow were the other two guys that were snapping a little bit, following behind Cam Griffin and Wes King, who were the first two centers that we saw in the game. We later on would see Landon Livingston and Trevor Bigelow on the two respective teams as well. And then the biggest play of the day for the defense probably was the one that kind of ended up ultimately deciding the game a little bit because it put them ahead, the blue team ahead, for the rest of the afternoon there, and that was a strip sack, or strip six, I guess, strip sack, whatever, you want to call it there, as it was on Max Anderson, but David Afogo, the Bowling Green transfer, really showed some nice burst off the edge to get in there and force that fumble, which Max Anderson tried to scoop up, couldn't, so the ball comes rolling out. Malik Hawkins picks it up, takes it all the way back the other way for a defensive touchdown, the only defensive touchdown of the game, so not only did we get to see Mike Hawkins play, we got to see Malik Hawkins make a big play, and perhaps the biggest play of the day for the defense when he picks up that fumble and runs it back for a touchdown for the blue team there, which had the blue team up 30-19.5. And like I said, they wouldn't relinquish that lead for the remainder of the game. Into the second half now, where kind of began with a good play by Teron Francis, who I think had a great catch and run to convert a 3rd and 10 for the goal team to start the second half. And it was one of those plays where he called it probably, at the 7 or 8 yard mark, so still a couple of yards short of the first down marker, and was able to fight through a couple of tackles, make a man miss, and get across the sticks. And I think that's the kind of plays you want to see Teron Francis make. He's a guy that can do things like that with the ball in his hands, much like we were talking about with DJ Epps earlier when he scored a touchdown. Teron Francis showed some of those same capabilities with making people miss and getting where he needs to go as he converted that 3rd and 10 for the gold team. Chris Talley here in the second half had a nice run of his own, breaking a 20-plus yard run, one of the longer runs of the day, aside from the Jaron Hughley one that we mentioned and a couple of those John Johnson runs. Chris Talley broke off a really good one on a 20-plus yard run right after Teron Francis converts that 3rd and 10. Then they get Chris Talley. He breaks off a 20-plus yard run there. And then Michael Hawkins throws a touchdown to true freshman Robert Oliver at the receiver spot, got him a touchdown. And that was actually a really nice play. Kind of scrambled out, found him in the back of the end zone, and hit him for a touchdown. That was one of the better passing plays of the day for Mike Hawkins, who got to show off his legs a little bit, but like I said, kind of hard to do when you're wearing that black jersey and essentially playing two-hand touch. And then the longest pass play of the day, I do believe, came for the blue team not long thereafter. Keon Hutchins, the junior college receiver. We know we had 2 of the top-ranked JUCO receivers in the country come in with Keon Hutchins and Kedrick Triplett, and we knew one thing about both those guys. They both had really good speed, and Keon Hutchins got to show his off. Looked like man-to-man coverage up that left sideline, beats his man. Max Brown puts it on him, catches it, 52-yard gain, sets up the blue team 1st and goal, which that drive would then be capped with John Nider making a touchdown catch there. A nice contested touchdown catch as well. I think he's going to be a really good possession receiver for West Virginia. Kind of has a knack for finding the holes in the zone or the holes in the defense, especially there on 3rd and goal. Tight window. Max Brown put it in there, put it on him, and he made the catch for the touchdown there for the blue team to further separate themselves, and they would go on to win 39-30 in the game. So that's kind of my recap of some of the highlights that I jotted down in my notes while watching the game. But to get to some of your all's questions here before wrap this one up. But that's what I wanted to hit on, man. I really thought it was a good experience today. Well worth the trip, in my opinion, but I always enjoy the spring games, and I especially enjoyed it this year. A lot of new faces. I think we're looking at a much improved offense, a much improved offensive line, great weather, great time in Morgantown today, and really excited to get our first glimpse of this team, but can't wait to see more of them come fall. So really excited, guys, for sure. All right, Devil Dog's in the house. Let's go. Hey, let's go Mountaineers, Devil Dog. Good to see you as always. Same for my guy, Mountaineers Headline. Let's go Mountaineers. Hey, there's Silas. I told you I've seen Silas today. I met him before, but glad I got the chance to see you again, Silas. Always good to see you there, man. And he says, looks like we have some speed. That's definitely, one of the takeaways, I think, for sure. And I'm glad that you pointed that out because, I think I mentioned it in passing, talking about a few of the individual guys there, whether it was Hughley, Keon Hutchins, John Johnson, Chris Talley. But I think that definitely, the thing that we've heard them talk a lot about throughout the spring season in the press conferences is they wanted to get faster, they wanted to get longer, they wanted to get more athletic. I think all of those things were on display here. You can even just look at the guys on the sideline there, a lot bigger guys. We look, more equipped to be competitive in the Big 12, and I think definitely we're starting to get those Rich Rod speed guys we were expecting to get. When Rich Rod came in, we were expecting to add some speed. We got a lot of those guys on the roster now, especially at the skill positions. The defensive backs were flying around as well, so I definitely think speed's going to be a strength of this team. I'd agree with you on that, Silas, for sure. Devil Dog 44 says Rich Rod seemed optimistic when talking about the on-field product. I know he has to sell season tickets, but also not known to hold back if we sucked. Yeah, I think that overall, as far as effort, competitiveness, hard edge, all of that, I think was probably up to his standard for the most part. He said, when he goes back and looks, he thinks he'll find a play or two of guy loafing. I think the thing that he will probably harp on the most is kind of the mental mistake side of things, but I tend to believe that that's probably because still getting the chemistry right with these guys. You brought in, 70-plus new players here on this roster, so sometimes you're going to have that. I think, probably far too many holding calls for his liking. I think there was, 5 or 6 holding calls throughout the game, if I'm not mistaken. But what really, you saw him get mad about was a false start or two that happened there. He was kind of fired up about those. So I think besides the penalties that did occur, for the most part, he probably had, a lot to be optimistic about with especially the way the offense made some plays today, for sure. Mountaineers Headline said, I think the quarterback room is in a great spot, not going to lie. Yeah, I agree. I think that battle will continue into the fall, and I mean, all the guys that we saw, I thought showed some potential. Max Anderson got in late. He even showed some good things in time that he was in there. He had a nice run of about, 10, 12 yards of his own. Those freshmen, like I said earlier, really impressed me. Quarterback room is in a great spot. I would 100% agree with that. And that's the one thing I've said kind of throughout this process is that no matter who wins the job, whether it's Scotty whether it's Mike Hawkins, either one of those guys, we're going to be set with one of the better backup quarterbacks in the country, and certainly one of the better backup quarterbacks in the conference, in my opinion, because you have two really good candidates there with both those guys. Devil Dog says, looks like there's competition at every position now, so the talented cannot rest if they want to play. Exactly. Not only are they going to feel the heat and everybody's going to have to raise their level of competition, but it also helps because you can feel more confident in subbing guys out if you need to bring in some fresh, legs there with our up-tempo style. Sometimes you might need, a fresh body or two in there, and I think you can do that with minimal drop-off, especially across, most of the skill positions, running back, quarterback, receiver. I mean, obviously you're not going to be subbing out quarterback, but running back and receiver seems like they've got some good depth there and some talented guys across the way. It's Not Okay Golf in the house. Glad to see you as well. Mountaineers headline said, I think he said he's going to be out for a few weeks, so I'm glad it's nothing serious. Yeah, talking about Prince Strawn there. I hated to see that. He did come off, holding the shoulder there, and I was wondering if it was going to be an injury. And then when I didn't see him go back in, I figured it was, and then heard Rich Rod mention that in his post-game press conference. But plus side there is that it's not going to be anything long-term. He'll be good to go by the time fall camp rolls around. The downside was I was hoping to see some more Prince Strawn. Only got to see him for a series or two because of that. But I think we'll see plenty of him in the fall. Hey, Devil Dog's got a message. He says, like, share, and subscribe. Don't make me tell y'all again. Hey, listen to the man. Don't make him break bad on y'all. But I really would appreciate that, guys. Hit the thumbs up button while you're in here. Be sure you subscribe to the channel for future updates on live streams, pre-recorded videos, all that as we cover all WVU sports here on the Country Roads webcast. And yeah, it always helps to share it around. Hit that copy button on the address bar there. Paste it out onto your social media. Share it out so it can find other Mountaineer fans for sure. Devil Dog says, I think Scotty Fox is game one starter, and there's a back and forth before Rich Rod settles for the Virginia game and the season starter, in my opinion. I could definitely see that. That's kind of been my stance on it, throughout this process, is I think that both guys are going to play, especially in those first couple of games. And then, like you said there, by that third game against UVA, maybe you're more solidified on one than the other. We'll see how it plays out for sure. Eric Flower says maybe Rich Rod can pick the starting quarterback basically game to game depending on the other team's defensive strong points in mind. Hey, that's something to keep in mind as well. You never know. That could be the case. If it's a game where you feel like, Scotty's going to attack whatever matchup's better, you play Scotty more, vice versa. If you feel like Mike Hawkins is going to be a threat in that game, I wouldn't rule it out. We know the main goal of Rich Rod and everyone in this program is to win games, and they'll do it any way they have to, even if that is the case. We'll see how it plays out there, but for sure, I'm excited because I think really capable guys at the quarterback position. Devil Dog 44 says, can't wait to see this offense completely open up and go full throttle. The playbooks were purposely watered down for today. Yeah, that's the other thing that I think it's sometimes hard to have, too many takeaways that you feel confident about one way or the other, because as I put out on social media, when I was walking to my car from the stadium, I was like, the offense is ahead of the defense right now. Still plenty of time for that to change. And I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. I think we needed the offense to improve, of course, based on what we saw last season. And I came away most optimistic about the offensive line looking pretty good, especially looks like they're going to be pretty deep because you had, multiple guys that have been in that rotation to potentially be, in the mix for starting jobs on each of the two teams, and each team's offensive line was performing pretty well. But as you said there, then on the ride home, listening to Zach Alley's post-game press conference where he mentioned the defense only had about 5 play calls all day, you're like, well, it's kind of hard to judge that then. Obviously, the offense is probably going to have an advantage if the defense is only calling about 5 different things there. So, and he also noted that with the team starting on, the 40 every time, as, the drives did, that's definitely puts the defense at a disadvantage as well. So, those are things to keep in mind, although the offense did play a little bit better today. But as I went through my notes there, hey, we had some defenders make some plays as well. Had a big defensive touchdown, though, essentially with the difference in the game as I knock over my headphone stand. Had a couple of pass breakups there that were really impressive, both by newcomers. which, of course, I guess any pass breakup is going to be by a newcomer pretty much, unless it's what Nick Taylor, I think, is one of the returners that we have there. But Damon Allen with a nice pass breakup, Jacob Bradford with a nice pass breakup. Did still see some good things from the defense, for sure. Devil Dog 44 says Hughley's a little quicker than the last quarterback that we had that wore number 8. Yeah, just a tad bit faster than old Nico, for sure, man. Hughley's got some wheels. When he took that thing off that sideline, and that was his first, snap in the game, and they called his number and he made the defense pay. And as you saw in the clip there, once he got into the open, there wasn't anybody catching him. And so I think that's someone that's going to be a weapon throughout his career here at WVU, and we're lucky to have a young quarterback like that on the roster. Let's see. Mountaineers headline said, honestly excited to see what happens from now until game time. Yeah, I can't wait to start getting some more news, man. Can't wait to get back into it. I'm sure we'll have some things come out over the summer, but once fall camp rolls around, it's going to be hot and heavy trying to figure out these position battles, because I think that that's, one of the things that you definitely can take away from today is that there's plenty of position battles that are still unsettled right now, and, guys are going to have to make or break that in the fall, whether it's on the offensive line, whether it's the quarterback position, whether it's, who's going to get the second most carries behind Cam Cook, whether it's who's going to be, a mainstay in the receiver rotation, because we saw John Nider catch a touchdown. We saw Keon Hutchins have a big play that he caught. We saw DJ Epps catch a touchdown. We saw some good plays from Teron Francis. Robert Oliver, a true freshman, caught a touchdown. So, I think that there's a lot of position battles that are going to go into the fall. So we're going to have a lot to talk about in the lead up to the fall, for sure. Lead up to that game 1. As Mountaineers headline says, because if they're this good now, I can only imagine what it'll be like in September. Yeah, I will say, man, I think it's night and day. I think I said this earlier, but it's worth repeating that right now it's night and day where the offense is, what it looks like, and especially the offensive line right now, to me, looked light years ahead of where it was at the end of last year. And you're just now, getting into it, with Rick Trickett only having, 14 practices with these guys, and he's already appearing to whip them into shape. Even at one point, it was hilarious because you look down there and they were right in front of where I was there on the bench at this point. There was about 4 or 5 offensive linemen in front of Rick Trickett, and he was just laying into him, man, throwing his hat around. And I'm like, oh man, I love seeing that firiness from Rick Trickett there, for sure. He was fired up and laying into him, and they weren't even performing bad. So that's just a coach that demands perfection. That's why he was the biggest get of the offseason, and why he's already got this unit looking a lot better than it ever did last season, for sure. Eric Flowers says it's crazy to be here listening to all the good stuff the football team is doing and being excited, and at the same time excited as hell with what's going on with the basketball team. Hey, great point, man. Great point. All-time recruiting class for basketball. Looking like a really, top of the line transfer portal class as well. And things are looking up. The future is bright, I think, for both sports moving forward here, WVU basketball and WVU football, which we all deserve. We've kind of went through a little down spell, and, the night is always darkest just before the dawn. I think things are about to come back up and rise back up in a big way. I really do believe that, for sure. Devil Dog says, I'm telling you, bet the over on the season win total this season. We can be in the conversation for Big 12 champions this season. I love the optimism, Devil Dog. I love the optimism. I've got to get a better read on the defense till I'm going that far with it. I definitely think the potential for that is there. If the offense performs as well as they looked like they can today with a lot of the pieces, and if the defense, has at least above average play, it's definitely something that could be in the cards. But as far as the over on the win line, hammer it. Hammer the over on the season total win line. I think it's 5.5 on FanDuel. I don't think DraftKings got theirs out, but this team's going to win at minimum 6 games, at minimum, in my opinion. That's just what I'm here saying right now, for sure. Hey, Leo, good to see you, man. He says, hey, Jordan, Max Brown was awesome. Yeah, Max Brown made some plays too, man. That's what's really encouraging, is we're sitting here talking about this, and, I've had some really good things to say about Jaron Hughley. I've seen people have some really good things to say about Mike Hawkins. Obviously, Scotty Fox, super efficient on his drive. He was in the game. And then Max Brown, Max Brown stood out to Leo as well in the comments. So really good, problem to have is to have multiple quarterbacks playing some good football. And that's goes back to what we mentioned earlier about having a good quarterback room this season. I think this definitely solidifies that. WVU Forest says, let's go Mountaineers. Hey, good to see you, WVU Forest. Let's go Mountaineers as always. Burdett Brothers Sports in the house. Hey, good to see you, man. He says, so excited for football season, and how about the Mountaineer baseball boys? Yep, the bounce back win there in the Coal Rush jerseys today. Dominant win over Houston. Now got the rubber match tomorrow. Go ahead and win that and get another series win for the WVU baseball team, which continues to have a really impressive season. It's a win-win day. The football team didn't lose, right? as Rich Rod said in his post-game press conference, West Virginia won today on the football side of things, of course, because we were winning either way. And then the baseball team getting the dub also. So it's everything came up Mountaineers today, I guess you could say, right? Leo said, who was the secondary player that made all the good stops? There was multiple guys that seemed like it was laying the wood. I didn't, write down any specific ones in my notes, but they were coming downhill flying. We sent a nickel blitz a couple of different times. Jameer Latimer got in there once. I think Paldrell got in there once off that nickel blitz as well. And I think the TFL that I saw was linebacker Isaiah Patterson, who really came screaming in. That was the most impressive TFL on the day for me. And then the two PBUs that really stood out from my notes were the Damon Allen PBU and the Jacob Bradford PBU. And then, of course, the biggest play of the day for the defense, that Malik Hawkins picking up that fumble and taking it back the other way for the touchdown. After, I think it bears mentioning, David Afogo kind of made that play happen with how he came screaming off the edge to force that fumble by Max Anderson for sure. So, Eric Flowers, I figured you would be in there all over that over on the season win total, as me and you have talked about a couple of times in the past. We've gotten burnt, the past couple of years now. This year is the year where we make that money back for sure, because got to hit that over on that win total, and I think West Virginia will make that happen for us. Silas says the big kicker looked great. He would have hit from 50 plus. Now his punt, not so much. Sideways off his foot for 10 yards. Yeah, I forgot about that Jack Cassidy, technically Brian Hansen's the only, punter listed on the roster, but they had somebody else punt for the other team, and so it was the kicker, Jack Cassidy. I think he only got to do one punt, and he shanked it, unfortunately, but that's not his forte, really. I mean, he may be serving as the backup punter in an emergency situation, but as Silas said there, and I mentioned a little bit earlier, he really is impressive on his field goal kicks. You can hear that ball come off his foot. He really has a nice sound to it when his toe meets leather, and, he hit the 50-yarder there to, start the game with the kicking competition to win that for the team there, but it was from 50, but it would have been good probably from 58 to 60. I mean, he had 10 yards through the uprights on that thing for sure. So appreciate you guys, man, that tuned in here live with some good questions, good comments here as well. If you didn't get a chance to tune in live, drop your thoughts in the comment section. If you were at the game, what were some of your takeaways? If you weren't at the game, want to ask a question, you can still do that in the comment section, even while watching the playback, and I appreciate that. Just like I appreciate it if you hit the thumbs up button, be sure you subscribe to the channel. All those things really help me a lot, as this is part of my full-time job. And if you want to help me even further and also help yourself, you can become a channel member. As you see some channel members there in the chat with the nice custom WVU football helmet badges. They also get behind the scenes videos. They get player grades, snap counts, and film reviews after each football game. We do game watch parties during football season. We do monthly member hangout streams. A lot of fun stuff there that, of course, helps me pay the bills, but also you help yourself to a bunch of bonus WVU sports content that you don't find here on the main channel. And things get crazy in those members-only streams sometimes. You never know what could happen. But really appreciate all our channel members as well, and would love for you to become one here and get yourself some extra WVU sports content as well. But having said that, that's what I had on the football side of things. Really quickly before we wrap up, did want to share a couple of updates to the basketball transfer target list, as we got a couple of names to remove. As Victor Valdez, the Troy forward West Virginia was after, committed to Georgia Tech. And then we also had the Butler transfer, Xavier Stink Robinson, commit to UCLA. So we're going to remove both of these two guys from our target list here on the basketball portal side of things. Let's go ahead and do that really quickly. And then we will call it a show. Oh, funny enough, they're right there beside each other. That makes it easy for me. And we still have Josh Holloway supposed to be visiting WVU this week. So as long as he makes it to campus, I believe it's supposed to be on Wednesday. That's one on commitment watch. And then a 2026 recruit, a big man that's over 7 foot tall that played at Bella Vista, also visiting WVU, as we talked about on last night's live stream. Check that out for more information on those two guys. But other than that, that's pretty much what I had, guys. Just wanted to share some of my takeaways, run through my notes, chat with you guys, get some of your all's thoughts that had a chance to tune into the game or that had questions about the game. All in all, like I said, a good performance for West Virginia. Didn't do anything to tamper my expectations for the upcoming season. As a matter of fact, probably got me even a little bit more optimistic and a little bit more excited for the fall and the potential of this team here in year 2 of the Rich Rod 2.0 era for sure. Really, really excited. Now, Hawkins did move the ball really well. That's I don't know if you jumped in late, but that's what I said. I was impressed with both quarterbacks for sure. Hawkins looked great. Scotty looked great. I wish we'd got to see more of each of them. It's kind of hard to judge with the small sample size that we had for sure, but was really excited, with the quarterback play of both guys, and that's a competition that's going to last into the fall. And as I said earlier, and I've always said throughout this process, no matter who wins that battle, whether it's Hawkins or it's Scotty, we're going to have one of the best backup quarterbacks in the conference, if not in the country, which I'm really excited about. So, yeah, plenty of plays were made by Michael Hawkins as well, for sure. I loved, Scotty's series there. He was in command of the offense. I think Michael Hawkins really made some good plays. What I also think is that if Michael Hawkins wasn't wearing the black jersey, the two-hand touch jersey, he probably would have broke some big runs, much like we saw with Jaron Hughley, who was able to, be live there as well, because he really did scramble out of there a couple of times, squirt through the pocket, and, looked like he was going to take off downfield, and then all of a sudden they're blowing the whistle, and I'm like, man, he might have scored on that play. So, yeah, Michael Hawkins made some plenty good plays as well, for sure. But having said that, guys, I've called a show for this one. Appreciate you guys that tuned in here live. If you got a chance to, tune on the playback, that's cool as well. Still appreciate that just as much. Make sure you like the video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Come back here in the near future, talk some more WVU football. Just because the spring's wrapping up doesn't mean we won't continue to cover it throughout the rest of the off season leading into fall camp, where we'll get into it hot and heavy. And of course, we'll have plenty of basketball portal news to talk about in the coming days as well. So we got plenty to talk about and plenty to cover, and we'll keep you up to date with it here on the Country Roads webcast. Appreciate you guys. As always, I'm Jordan Cruz, and until next time, let's go Mountaineers.